Do you ever feel like your brain is a computer with 100 tabs open, and you can't find the one that's playing the music? That is overthinking, and it is slowly stealing your life. Before we get into it, do me a favor. Hit subscribe, like this video, and comment one word: act. Because by the end of this, you are either going to start moving forward or stay frozen. There is no middle ground. And I promise you, you want to stay until the end. Because I am going to share the one thing I learned that completely broke the cycle for me. Let's go. I once spent 2 weeks unable to buy a pair of shoes. 2 weeks. I walked into the store. I looked at the options. I compared prices. I read reviews. I left. I came back the next day. I did it again. I was paralyzed. What if I bought the wrong ones? What if they were uncomfortable? What if I wasted my money? When I finally bought them, I wore them for 3 years. They were fine. The whole thing was ridiculous. But that is what overthinking does. It makes the trivial feel like life or death. Let me tell you about something that actually cost me. A few years ago, I was dating someone. We were getting serious. But I never told her how I really felt. I overthought every conversation. What if I say too much? What if I scare her off? What if she doesn't feel the same way? So I stayed quiet. I played it safe. I waited for the perfect moment. She ended up with someone else, and I was left with a question I still think about. What if I had just said something? That is the real cost of overthinking. It is not just time. It is love. It is connection. It is the life you could have had. I see this pattern everywhere now. Not just in my own life, in my friends, in the people who write to me. One of them told me he spent a year deciding whether to leave his job. A year. He was miserable. He would come home exhausted. He would vent to his partner. He would look at other job listings. He would update his resume. And then, he would do nothing. He told me he was gathering information. But really, he was terrified. What if he left and failed? What if he regretted it? What if he couldn't find another job? That year cost him his health. His relationships suffered. He gained weight. He stopped sleeping. Eventually, he was let go. The decision was made for him. He told me later, I wasted a year being scared of something that ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. That is the pattern. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca said that 2,000 years ago, and we are still doing the same thing. We imagine the worst. We catastrophize. We build prisons in our minds that we never actually have to live in. And then, when reality comes, it is never as bad as we imagined. Think about the last time you were terrified of something. A conversation, a decision, a change. When it happened, was it as bad as you thought? Probably not. So why do we do it? Why do we keep doing this to ourselves? Because our brains are wired for survival. They are not wired for happiness. They are not wired for peace. They are wired to keep us alive. And in the modern world, that means they treat every decision like a predator. Your brain does not know the difference between a bear and a boss. It does not know the difference between a broken heart and a broken bone. It just reacts. So it throws up fear. And we think that fear means we should stop. But it doesn't. It just means we are human. The Stoics understood this. They did not say fear was wrong. They said fear was data. It is just a signal. The problem is when we let the signal become the command. You feel fear, and you think, I must stop. I must wait. I must be safe. But the Stoic says, I feel fear. That is interesting. What is it telling me? Is this a real threat? Or is this just my imagination? This is where the dichotomy of control actually becomes useful. Epictetus said, "Some things are in our control, and others are not." When you overthink, you are trying to control things that are not in your control. You are trying to guarantee an outcome that can never be guaranteed. You are trying to control other people's reactions. You are trying to control the future. You are trying to control perfection. And you cannot do any of those things. So you spin, you loop, you get stuck. Here is the fix. It is not to think less. It is to think about the right things. Ask yourself 2 questions. Question 1, what is in my control here? Question 2, what is one tiny step I can take right now? Not the perfect step, not the final step, just the next one. That is it. The whole secret. Stop trying to eat the whole elephant. Just take one bite. I learned this from climbing. Not a big climber, but one time I went rock climbing with a friend. I looked up at the wall, and it seemed impossible. There was no way I could get to the top. My friend said, "Don't look at the top. Look at the next hold. Just get your hand on the next hold." I did that. Then the next one. Then the next one. Before I knew it, I was at the top. Overthinking is the same. You are looking at the whole wall. You are trying to figure out every move before you even start. You are imagining falling, but you only need to take the next step. That is why I started using what I call the one-step rule. It is simple. When you catch yourself overthinking, stop. Take one action, any action, as long as it is toward the decision. It does not have to be the whole thing, just one small thing. Write one sentence, send one email, make one call, open one tab, book one appointment. The action breaks the spell. It pulls you out of your head and into the world. And when you are in the world, things are usually manageable. It is in your head that things are terrifying. Let me give you another example, a painful one. I used to be afraid of my finances. I would avoid looking at my bank account. I would ignore bills. I would pretend everything was fine. I was overthinking every purchase. What if I didn't have enough? What if I couldn't pay rent? What if I ended up broke? One day, I forced myself to sit down and look. I wrote everything down, every bill, every expense, every dollar. It took 30 minutes, and it was not as bad as I thought. I had enough. I had a plan. The fear was worse than the reality. That day changed how I approach everything. Now when I feel that dread, I lean in. I ask, what am I actually afraid of? Is it real? Or is it just a story I am telling myself? Most of the time, it is a story, and the story is keeping you stuck. Think about this. The time you spend overthinking is not time you are using. It is time you are losing. You will never get that time back. It is gone forever. And at the end of your life, you will not regret the things you did wrong. You will regret the things you did not do because you were too afraid. So here is your challenge. Pick one thing you have been avoiding. Just one. Maybe it is a conversation. Maybe it is a decision. Maybe it is a step you have been too scared to take. Do not try to solve the whole problem. Just take one step. One tiny step. Today. Comment one word if you are ready to stop overthinking and start acting. Act. Subscribe to Stoic Grit. We do not stay stuck. We take the next step. The only way out is through. Start today.